Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Gina, welcome and thanks so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Everybody, today's guest is Gina Boedeker, founder of the Boedeker Group. She is the best-selling author of Hard Stop, one of the most intentional entrepreneurs you'll ever meet. Gina built her market research firm with a clear purpose to deliver excellent results for clients, but also to do it without sacrificing her personal life in the process, as many entrepreneurs do. So Gina's worked across education, edtech, publishing, and brings a refreshing, focused perspective on leadership and growth, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and what it means to build a business that supports your life, not one that takes it over, which happens a lot. So Gina, thank you so much for being here. We are excited to dive in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be here. And I think your intro was great. That's exactly what I'm most passionate about talking about, is how to build a business without sacrificing the other elements of our lives that are really important, that we don't always talk about when we're building a business, where, growth is doesn't have to just be numbers oriented. Like, how can we continue to develop as people? How can we find time for the things that are important to us while scaling our business and hitting those financial goals that we have as well? So I'm excited to talk about that.
I think I'm fascinated because I struggle with it myself. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with it. Mike, our CEO, talks about, like, he sets goals for family, kids, personal, like all those things, but I'm curious your approach. So we'll dive in. But before we dive into the questions and more about that, maybe just give the audience a little bit more about your background, about the Boedeker Group, or anything that you like.
Sure. So, I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I lived there until I went away to college in Chicago, came back, lived in St. Louis for a bit, and then I became very intentional about the life that I wanted to live, which took me to New York. And I lived in New York for about 15 years. And I lived my dream job. So I was an editor in a global publishing company. I absolutely loved living in Manhattan. And this was my early 20s, my 30s, and had a really great time doing that. I wound up moving up kind of through the corporate world into a managing director role for a large global publisher. And that's where I realized, after 5 years in that position, I had a 1 and 3-year-old. And that's when I decided to make a move and to start my own company, for many reasons, which we'll talk about while here. But the main one being to be able to live life on my own terms, to have the flexibility that I wanted. And so I started the company almost 9 years ago, and we moved to Colorado from New York during COVID, when we were really looking to get some outside time, and moved here and have embraced hiking, climbing, mountain biking, gravel biking, skiing, all the stuff. Just absolutely love the life that Colorado has to offer. And now I have a 9 and 11-year-old and an almost 9-year-old business. So all of my babies kind of grew up together.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's a lot of changes at once, right? Went from a big corporate job to being an entrepreneur, went from New York to Colorado, and then you get kids. That's a lot of changes. I'm curious though, what inspired that change? I mean, I get it, but like, was it that the corporate job was just burnt out, crazy hours, stress? Like, what was it that made you say, all right, I can't do this anymore. We're changing things up?
It's a really good question. And it's something I talk about a lot in Hard Stop, because I am an avid believer in journaling and getting thoughts out and having goals and knowing what you want to do and kind of working through, like, who I am, what am I looking for? What do I want to accomplish? And I just remember a time when there was going to be some changes at my company, and there would be opportunities for growth there. And I just remember this feeling of, I don't want it. I don't want whatever is next. I could see what the next position looked like after a managing director. And while nothing had been offered yet, there was just this pit in my stomach of like, I don't want to be on this path anymore, which surprised me because I had no backup. I am the most unlikely entrepreneur that I know. So there's so many people who you meet in this entrepreneurial world who are like, I started this business and I sold it. I started this business, I started this business. And I loved and appreciated a steady paycheck. I considered myself extremely risk averse. But I just had this sinking feeling. And I spent some time like journaling on it. And I realized I didn't feel like I was the leader that I wanted to be at that time. I didn't feel like I was the mom I wanted to be. I was leaving my kids early, but felt like I was getting into the office too late. And then on the reverse, I felt like I was leaving the office too early. But my gosh, I only get a couple of hours a day with my kids. Like, this sucks. I'm not feeling like I'm being successful in either area. And it took me 3 weeks to leave, to put in my notice for a job that I had for almost 15 years. Once I had that gut feeling, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I know I don't want this. And I think there's opportunity for me to build something here that's a little bit more on my terms. So it happened very quickly.
Wow. After 15 years. I will say personally, I've been there, right? Where you feel like you're not winning on any fronts. You're like, hang on, well, I feel like I'm not putting in enough effort at work or with the job or with my business, but I'm also not showing up at home. I've been there. So I totally get that. That's really, really hard.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, right? So yeah, that's very, very challenging. So then how did you make that? So then you make the switch to entrepreneur. So then what? What's the next part of that story?
So when I first started, what I knew, again, I had been in this industry for 15 years and I knew the types of companies that we hired to support us. So I thought, I can do that. This was before COVID when working remotely wasn't a thing. So I knew I wanted to work. I was happy working full time. Kudos to those who are stay-at-home parents. That just wasn't something I was interested in. But I wanted to get some time back on the commute. I wanted to be able to own my schedule. And so I decided I'll just start a company in this space and I'll work my network, as we all do. When you first start, you work who you know. But very quickly, I realized that I needed to approach running a business the way, like I'm an avid learner. The Clifton strengths, if you've ever taken that assessment, like learner is my number one strength. I needed to learn. I needed to admit, I don't know how to run a business. I had to Google everything at the beginning, from the very beginning. How do I even set up an LLC? What does this look like? And I quickly found Entrepreneurs Organization has an accelerator program. Yep. And within a year of launching, just working my network, I was able to qualify for that. And then when I did, I just approached TBG as like an entrepreneurial MBA. Like I'm going to learn everything I can about the approach to people, strategy, execution, finance, like all of those different buckets. And then if you can see behind me, and this is just one of them, like I bought the books and I put my head down as a learner of like, what do I need to, I'm not the first person to do this. There's a lot of people I can learn from. And I just have always been open to other people sharing their expertise, reading the books and implementing what made the most sense. There's a lot of like fits and starts. Like you start something, you're like, I don't think this is my right approach. Then you read something else and you're like, this fits. And slowly you kind of build up. Okay. I feel like I was very fortunate to have found the book Traction by Gina Wickman, the EOS methodology for entrepreneurs to have some type of operating system. I found that maybe 2 or 3 years into my business, and then that changed everything. It was really about ways to be able to scale based on developing your business and not working directly in the business.
That's right.
And that mindset shift just opened up a lot of doors for me.
How did you come across that?
I think it came up through, even though Scaling Up is the book that is through EO, it was brought up at one of the EO meetings that there's a lot of EOS implementers who are a part of that organization. Yeah. And the idea being, it doesn't have to be this operating system, but you do need to have one. And when I read Traction, it just fit.
Yeah. 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 I find a lot of the people that I talk to from EO use EOS. It's interesting. I wonder if it's just because a lot of the implementers are in there. But what we say is, because obviously we come across them in the market, MAP has a similar operating system for businesses. There's some key differences, but as long as you're using something, right? Because it is so powerful and helpful to have a proven operating system you can put in your business that will help you to just run more efficiently, have accountability, have the right rhythms and structure. It's so, so valuable.
Yeah.
And more people need that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have it. I know we wouldn't have grown. And I also know that I wouldn't be able to have the kind of life that I have outside of work without it. And that's, I think, one of the greatest gifts that it's given me is time back. More than anything, it's given me
And
time.
why is that?
Because it doesn't have to all be me. So when I started my business, every single deliverable to our clients. So the Boedeker Group is a market research company, and we help our clients get information on and from their target market that helps in how they develop their products or how they market their products or to help them sell more of them. And so at one point, every single deliverable went through me. And as we grew, it becomes a bottleneck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Gina, can you review these 12 reports that we have that are due to clients? And I had such a hard time giving it up because my name's on my company. This is my reputation. This is a very hard thing to trust people to do. And then I realized, like, I am getting in my own way of this company being able to scale. So what are the things that I look for when a project gets checked off by me, that we have met our deliverable expectations, we're going to surpass client expectations? And we created a rubric. These are all of the things that we're looking for. This is a peer review process. So now I hire people who are much smarter than me in their areas, and I get out of their way. But I say, this is our approach. And we have implemented across every area of our business SOPs, standard operating procedures, from our interview process and what we use to onboarding, training, ongoing professional development. But as we're sending in deliverables, this is specifically what we're looking for. And it goes through multiple sets of eyes. Those eyes just don't have to be mine anymore.
I love that.
I can trust that our deliverables meet my criteria with my team doing it. And there's many projects where I don't see the final deliverable because we have the right people in place and it doesn't require me. So that was a massive change.
That is massive. That is effective delegation right there. But we always say, inspect what you expect. So do you have an inspection process to make sure that throughout that chain, things are still getting done the right way and to the right quality that you expect?
Oh yeah. So we implement different systems. Like we use for our project management system, we use monday.com. I can pull reports. I can see, we get super granular on, because we want to provide the best deliverable for our clients at a price that they see value. If anytime anybody's asking, like, why am I paying so much? They don't see the value, right? So, yes, there's checks and balances that I have throughout. So I can at any time dig in and I can look at what's happening on every project. I have access to every stage that we're in. I get weekly reports on every project that we're working on for our clients. So yes, there's always ways that, and I have a director of operations who has an eagle eye, who is fantastic, who oversees all projects and is usually the eyes that I am not on a final deliverable. So it does go through multiple checkpoints. It's just, it doesn't always have to be me.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned it a couple of times, I think, talking about having great people, because you can have a great system, but unless you have great people for that system to operate that system, you're only going to go so far. You talked about hiring people that are smarter than you or better than you. You're a great director of operations. How are you finding these people? How do you go about, look, if I post a job on LinkedIn today for a new role, I'll get hundreds of resumes, right? From everywhere. It's hard to sift through and find really good, talented people. How do you go about it?
So one of the books that we implemented that I like when you get to the point of interviewing is it's called the Who Method by Jeffrey Smart, but it's top grading. I don't have the previous book. I used but a consistency in how we interview. Something super simple. So let's say I'm hiring a project coordinator who is, cleans the list, sends out invitations, large survey kind of projects that we work on. Very much an important is attention to detail. So as simple as if we're posting it on any of the job boards, we have a question about asking about a time that you had to manage multiple projects, things couldn't all get done, talk about the thought process. And so what you see is some people skip it, some people don't write well, some people don't really take the time to reflect. And I recognize that this is an interview process and you can't ask too much from people before they have some skin in the game, before they've even interviewed. But we use that. Like, I will not speak to anybody who doesn't at least take the time to write a few sentences, because we have to see if they're representing us. Many of our clients in the education and publishing space, their end clients are faculty and academics who you have to have solid punctuation. You have to be able to construct sentences. So it's just, we have those kind of check marks. Before I meet anybody, the team, I have a director of project management, a director of operations, where they do the interviews. We all follow the same format that comes through the WHO method, so that I'm only then speaking to the people who they would be ready to put an offer to. And again, that has freed up my time, where it's no longer my responsibility to hire the people on their team. They take point. And one of the things that I'm also hiring for, one of our core values, is always learning and a curiosity. So if I get into one of those calls and I say, okay, you've met with my team, you've been through the process, do you have any questions for me? Why don't you start? No, I don't have any questions. Then I'm not interested.
Yeah, because that's always a red flag.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
So some of my interviews can be very quick.
Yeah. I've noticed the same thing. Yeah, it's such a red flag. If I turn it over to you and you have no questions or really basic questions, that's not a good sign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So most of my interview is flipping it over and just saying, this is for you to run. What is it about us that you like? What are the things that you're unsure about? And you get time with me. Ask me all the questions that you want. And I'm looking for somebody who has their list, who has come prepared, who's done their research, but also doesn't just say, okay, next question, but, oh, it's interesting that you said that. Can you tell me more about that? Because again, my team does interviews. So if they can't go back and forth, we do in-depth interviews, we run focus groups. If you don't have curiosity there in the interview process, you won't with our clients, and you won't with their potential customers. So that's an immediate red flag.
That's a great point. Being able to hold a conversation, active listening, responding or reacting on the fly. The email thing, it's kind of scary how few people can really write well. And I think it's degrading. It's getting worse.
I know.
In 20 years, I'm sort of scared to see how my teenagers are going to be able to write, Yeah. They're just going to write in basically TikToks or text message format.
I'm not ready for this. Maybe by then I'll be retired. I don't want to deal with that.
It's not good. It's not good. So you mentioned professional development, which is near and dear to the Matt part. What do you do for your team? What do you do for continuous development or learning for the team?
So one, when they start as part of our orientation, we have 2 books that we recommend that they read. One, Traction, but it's actually a Traction Light version. It's called What the Heck is EOS? And it allows them to just better understand why we operate the way that we do. They do the Clifton Strengths test so they can understand like how they fit in with the whole team. And then each month we have a professional development topic, but it's not just run by me. So the team, it's a learning opportunity, one, to learn more about a topic they're interested in that is beneficial for our team in some way. And they get to practice, if it's not something that's in their wheelhouse or something they do a lot, presenting to the whole team and putting together a presentation. So we have a monthly professional development series, and they get to sign up for the topics. So some recent ones we've had was just diving deeper on AI and how you can use ChatGPT. We've had the DISC profile assessment. Somebody wanted to talk more about that. We write a lot of surveys. So what are some of the best practices and qualitative, quantitative questions that we should be including? Some some hacks or tips for using Qualtrics, the software system that we use for our survey writing tool. So I love that it's not driven by me, where the team gets to decide, hey, I want to learn more about this. So I'm going to go learn about it enough to where I can present it to my team. And so again, it's not just me doing it. I might have a topic I talk about that comes up once a year, but it's really driven by the team and what they're interested in learning more about.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name is Michael Cato. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
So I mentioned to you that we like to ask our guests for something actionable that the audience can take away and implement in their business. That's my takeaway. I'm stealing that. We're going to take
Great.
that because we do professional development days where we'll do like some learning subject, or we actually just did a similar learning event for our team on AI and how best to use AI or ChatGPT for everything, right? To be more efficient. But we don't do it enough. So I like the idea of a monthly event, and also just capturing feedback from the team, right? Like, hey, what do you want to learn about? How can we all get better? So that's a great idea. How are you capturing the ideas from people? Do you have like a feedback form? Do you have a survey?
We have a Google Sheet, and we have a weekly meeting that, the level 10 meeting that you have through EOS. Yeah. And we have ideas and issues. So some things that come up as ideas, we're like, oh, that can go on somebody's to-do list, or it can go on to a professional development list, which we capture. And then people, okay, it's a great topic. Who wants to dive a little bit deeper and be prepared to talk about this in June, in July. So we stretch them out.
Love it. Yeah. I'm stealing that.
Good.
So
I'm glad.
it sounds like you've got a good process. Sounds like you're using EOS in depth. How do you, within the organization, how do you ensure the team stays focused on the right things, on what matters, without having to like spend a ton of time micromanaging or burning yourself out? How do you handle that?
So in our business, we're service-based business, and we have for every project very granularly how much time each person on the team should be spending on each individual task that goes into, let's say it's doing a large quantitative study. We know how long it takes to get a list, to clean the list, to upload the list, and we have time. So at any point, the team can take ownership of like, am I on track? Am I on track? Am I off track? And they should be alerting me if anything is going over. But if they don't, we also have that pulled weekly from our director of operations, and we make sure that we're on track on all of the projects that we're managing for our clients. We have benchmarks for how many hours we have per week that should be billable versus non-billable based on time of year. So we have a cyclical nature in our business. We're extremely busy in the spring. It's a little bit slower in the summer. We can have more planning. We can do more TBG related items, and then it's crazy again in the fall. And so we give those specific numbers to our teams so that they can own it, but then we're able to pull it as well using our time tracking system. So
that's awesome.
We also have, we have our weekly meetings, team meetings where we are going through our weekly to-dos. Here's what I committed to that's outside of the projects that I'm managing. And then we follow, it's rocks, but I really liked the measure what matters, the objectives and key results, OKRs. So we follow more of that format for our quarterly rocks. And every week, we just had our team meeting right before this, on track, off track for everything that we have. That's one of the initiatives that we're moving forward for the company on a quarter basis. And so there is a tremendous amount of visibility. At the end of each quarter, we rate on a scale of 0 to 1. Did we hit that goal? Did we not hit that goal? And we talk about it as a team. So it's important that people have both those kind of stretch goals, which are OKRs, but then we also have just a mid-year and a yearly evaluation to make sure that there's nothing, no performance issues that we need to discuss, but those should never be a surprise. We have weekly one-on-ones where we're actively coaching about what's working and what's not. So there should never be a case where there is any type of end of year surprise if somebody's off track.
100%. They always say if you have an underperformer, it shouldn't be a surprise to them if you have to let them go. They should know.
Absolutely. They should know. Yeah. It's like, okay, it's been a while. We've been talking about this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. But you have to have that process in place. I'm curious, so you talked about the OKRs, which are amazing. You have the quarterly process. Let's say you have that quarterly meeting, you review some OKRs and a couple of them you didn't hit. Mm-hmm. What next?
It happens. I mean, so we have to, I think it's just the transparency and the openness of why something didn't. So let me give an example. We had our best quarter in 8.5 years this last semester. Or thank you. I said semester because I'm talking about our end users market. But it was a really busy, extremely busy spring for us. And there were some things that my team had on their OKRs that they wanted to accomplish by the end of Q1, which is, March 30th. The challenge with that is our busiest time. And so our billable hours were almost, 90% plus. They didn't have time in order to hit all of those OKRs that they had for the TBG piece. It was an open discussion every week. Like, here's what I want to here's, what I have on my list to work on, but this client needs this. Client comes first. The rest of this, we'll, as a leadership team, talk about what absolutely must get done and what can we jump in and help on. And what do we recognize, like, yes, that will be great for us to focus on when we're back down to like 70, 80% billable hours and you have some time to breathe. So this work-life balance is not just for me. I don't want my team working over 40 hours. I feel very strongly that we have the retention that we have because I don't expect it, and that I value them as humans who have other interests outside of work. So we're very strict about keeping people within about a 40-hour work week. It can go up a little bit at a time, but that's not what I expect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When we do that, I'm just thinking about our process. One of the things I love is we'll, problem solve, right? I think that sometimes people track all sorts of metrics and KPIs, and that's great, but it's also what you do with them, right? It's like, you have to have some sort of action. Hey, okay, we didn't hit our number this month. Let's talk about it. Right? That the whole purpose of these meetings is that we can problem solve and talk about it. And so, okay, we're down. We totally missed the mark this quarter, guys. Why? What was the problem? Did we set the wrong goal? Did we have the wrong metric? Did we have the wrong initiatives? What happened? And then you course correct. And hopefully you don't do it 2 quarters in a row. But that sort of rhythm has to be there. We like to do it on a monthly basis, but as long as you're doing it at some point, it's fine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think by the time that we get to the quarter, there's no surprise because we have our quarterly rocks or OKRs that tie into what are we doing this week to move it forward. Yeah. So well before you get to the end of the quarter, like I didn't do that, we're talking on track, off track, on track, off track every week. And if you're off track, then we make the decision, okay, we're going to choose to be off track on this particular objective. It makes sense for us to be in order to fulfill these client projects that we have right now. But to your point, then we have to figure out, okay, but if this really is a priority for us, then it has to be done next quarter. Did we take on too many OKRs? That's usually, I think, the issue that we have is that you get really excited at the start of the year or start of a quarter of all the things that you want to do. And I think I need to be better, even sometimes, of like winnowing that list down and be like, what's realistic in 3 months? Mm-hmm. And let's hold ourselves more accountable to that. Sometimes they're a little bit more aspirational than they probably should be.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to say no to stuff, right? You get excited. You want to add more to the list, but you have to say no to stuff. We always say if you hit 80% of your goals, that's pretty good. You hit 100%, I agree with that maybe a little too soft. 80%, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, what's next? What are you guys working on? What are your big goals for the next couple of years?
So what we're working on, I mean, AI is the talk in every single industry, right? So what are the best ways that we can leverage it in our business to be more efficient, effective for our clients? And again, I'm in a learning mode. So there's things that maybe I'm not thinking of that we could incorporate more. But what I'm finding is there's nuance that's still missing in AI with the work that we do as far as like human-centered insights. Like if I uploaded results of a survey into an AI tool, it'll spit out some information. And great. If you're not using a market research company, you can get some really helpful nuggets. But for us, the one-on-one interaction with clients, the virtual focus groups or the in-person focus groups, when you can ask the next level question, when you can say, I don't really understand what that means, can you tell me more? I think for us, really focusing on what we bring on the human element of market research is important and a value that we will continue to bring to clients for years to come while we're figuring out what else we can do using these amazing tools that are available. So that's the future TBG. And personally, my goal is eventually a founder, advisor role 5-8 years from now. And so I'm extremely focused on how do I put all of these systems in place, put the right people in place for me to feel comfortable that I can take a diminished role year over year and know that the business will continue to grow and thrive and become something that either I can sell or I can sell to the employees and figure out what that exit would look like for me a little bit down the road. But I'm very interested right now in tightening everything up to the point where I can be in a 10-hour-a-week position as checking in and making sure everything is happening the way that it needs to be without every day not being a part of, or every weekday being a part of the ins and outs of the business.
Well, you're doing the right things, right? If you're putting in the right process and you're hiring the right team and you have the right systems in place, those are the key components, you know, to be able to do that and step away and not have to be in the business all the time. We talk to founders all the time that have walked that path, and it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. They build a great business and then maybe they pass it on to their kids or they sell it or whatever it may be, but you're doing the right things. That's great. Let's talk about your book, Hard Stop. Okay. Tell me about it. What does it mean to you, the live with intention, and like, how does that influence the business?
So I gave an example of when I was surprised of like, I don't want to do the next thing. And I was bothered by the fact that surprised me, that I hadn't spent enough time just personally knowing and checking in with myself about, am I on the path that I want to be on? So on paper, I had everything I wanted. I was happily married. I had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, a big job, loved my apartment in Jersey City. Like on paper, everything was great, but it didn't feel great. But I didn't give myself room to stop and to really think about like, is this the life that I want to be living? And I think that happens to a lot of us. We're busy. You can get through a day, you can get through a week, a month without asking yourself those questions. And you can live a life that, maybe you're happy, maybe you're not sometimes, but it's not intentional. It's just like you're on this path that it's like the hamster wheel. I'm just moving, I'm moving, and I don't know where I'm going. And that's what this book is about. That so many of us live our lives that way because we're busy and we just fill in the time. And at the end of the day, when it's 9:00 at night and I was spending quality time with my husband, turning on a Netflix show and passing out within 5 minutes. Like I had nothing to give anybody. And so the book is about knowing what your priorities are. So often we talk about what our goals are. So I know I want to do this by this time. We just spent a long time talking about OKRs and weekly checking in, but we don't always do that personally. And I'm not going to say like, my goal is to do a 513, climbing. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. It is, what are my priorities? And so I think we inherently know my husband's a priority. My kids are a priority. Okay. So we all kind of have an idea of what that looks like. But in the book, you get very granular about what does a priority mean to me? And it comes down to time and energy that you'll put into that. So I'll give this example. I would have said before I got really into my intentionality practice, my husband's a priority, 10 out of 10. This relationship is important. But he was getting like the drop dead, so tired version of me at 9 o'clock trying to watch a show together. And that's not quality time. So I plan my week and I'll say, okay, if he is a priority, what does it mean for me to show up that he is a priority? Well, we have 2 small kids. We don't have a chance to we don't do date nights all the time because we have kids where we have to run things to. So it means like a day or 2 a week, I'm meeting him at the climbing gym. That's how we like to spend time together. Or we go out for a hike or we go for a coffee. I'm going to create time in my calendar and it's reflected in my calendar. What's it mean to say my kids are a priority? Well, I want to sign up for every single field trip that I can. Check. Doing that on Friday. I'm going to prioritize drop-offs and pickups. So yeah, that impacts my business. I only accept meetings from 9 to 3 till 3:30, 9 to 3:30, and then I pick them up. So, but it's becoming very granular about what are your priorities? How much time are you going to allocate for them? What are the things you have to give up? You talked about you have to say no sometimes. How do you do that? But it's about like very practical ways and exercises for you to do, to journal yourself, to write things out and to ask yourselves those questions that people don't ask themselves regularly, to get off of that treadmill and be like, is this the life that I want to be living? And I'll pause and just say the last thing about this is like I have a dashboard and it sounds really crazy. You said you might ask about like what is a major takeaway for listeners? Scale of 1 to 10 every week. Am I living my life the way that I want to be living it? Like no more surprises, 1 to 10. And if I'm not consistently at an 8, 9, or 10, then I have to dig into why is that? Okay, is it my relationship? Is it how I am with my kids? Is it with my relationship with my parents? Like what's making me feel off? And then find ways to make time for those priorities, because if we're not feeling connected or if we're not feeling like our priorities are showing up in our lives, I think that's a really big miss. And to me, that's the most important thing.
I like that. That might be another thing I take away. That's pretty cool. I like that 1 to 10 rating. Man, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, it's interesting. We recently I didn't put on we didn't calendar it yet, but the wife and I just started doing gym dates where we just like, hey, we both work, we got the kids. Like you said, we're carting them around weekends, nights, exhausted by 9 or 10 p.m. So we'll go to the gym together, just to get out of the house and go do that together, right? It's just one of those things. It's just, yeah. So I
just find that sometimes those priorities are everything. If I look at most entrepreneurs, so I've done these and in corporate, I've done workshops and people open up their calendars. Every single meeting is listed on their calendar of meetings they have with other people that may or may not be their priority, but like work meetings. Mm-hmm. But those times okay, well then just put an hour here for yourself. Yeah. What do you want to do? You want to go on a gym date with your wife? You want to go for a quick walk. If health is important to you, do you have exercise on your calendar? Mm-hmm. So now I plan every week. I can see my days. Okay, my kids have class 4:30 to 6:30. I'm going to meet them a little bit earlier. I'm going to lift for 45 minutes and then I'll pick them up. Like it's just planning, but it's being intentional about where you spend your time. That's all Hard Stop's about.
I like that. I like that a lot. And you're right. Calendars are typically just work stuff and they shouldn't be. Right. The other thing that occurred to me as you were talking through that is it's just the opposite of most things you see on LinkedIn or Instagram, where it's like all this hustle culture, like, oh, if you're not working 24/7, you're falling behind, which is total BS, by the way. Right. And it's just, you don't have to buy into that. You can still have a life and have I know many, many successful entrepreneurs who have a good life, so you don't have to kill yourself in pursuit of it. You have to work hard, but you can still have a life.
I also will add to that I was hesitant when I first started writing. Hey, I'm not writing about market research. I'm writing about making time for what matters to me. And I'm off today for a field trip. And I'm a business mom who also prioritizes being a mom, and wondered, would my ideal clients, would that be a turnoff for them, right? Like, would they be like, Gina always writes about personal stuff, or she brings this other side. And I will say, it's the total opposite, and I would not have expected it. I put it out there because it's authentic to me, and I feel like other people feel this same way. Like I have to kind of hide these other things that are really important to me and just be like market research all the time. And majority of my clients, like I've built a relationship and they know me by the time that we talk when it's new, because they're like, oh, I follow you on LinkedIn. I see that you're talking about these things and that these things matter to you. It's also in my pitch deck, my why. So the Simon Sinek, start with why.
Yeah.
I tell people managing director doing this. Then I had a 1 and 3-year-old and I wanted to be more present for them. And there are senior leaders of these global publishing companies will stop me and say, I'm a dad. I've got a 6-year-old. I took him to a baseball game last night. Like you just put it out there of like being a full person and not just we are this market research company. Every call, somebody knows something about me personally. And I just feel it has opened up, I don't know, more of an authentic relationship than here's why we're the best solution for your market research needs.
Well, look, people want to do business with people they like. And I think with shared values too. So by putting that out there, you're going to attract the clients that fit best for you. And the ones that don't fit are going to self-identify and see you later, right? So
Exactly.
Then you're going to have clients that really have those shared values.
Agreed. That's a really great way to put it.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, Gina. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Before we wrap, where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, or learn more about Boedeker Group?
Okay, thank you for asking. So I'm not sure if my name will come up when they see this, but it's a unique name. So if you put Gina Boedeker in LinkedIn, I will come up. There's for Hardstop, ginaboedeker.com is where you can find more on Hardstop. And then the company is the Boedeker Group with that spelling, .com. And there's ways they can reach me from all of those ways. And I'd be excited to engage with anybody who listened. And please do feel free to reach out.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate your time. And thank you everybody for listening. And we will see you next time.